Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast where we talk about real-world topics to help you your English. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Mike. Good to be here, as always.
So Mike, today we're diving into a topic that affects every single person on this planet. Can you guess what it is?
Climate change?
Exactly. Climate change, one of our generation. And the cool thing is, whether you're a student, a teacher, or just someone who cares about the future, this is a topic you to be able to talk about in English.
Right. And throughout today's episode, we'll be explaining key vocabulary along the way. So even if you're not an expert, don't worry. We've got you covered.
Let's get into it.
All right, Rebecca, let's start simple. I hear the term all the time, but can you actually explain what it means? Like, in plain English?
Great question. So basically, it refers to long-term shifts in global temperatures and weather patterns. Now, and this is important, some of these shifts are natural. The Earth's climate has always changed over millions of years, but since the 1800s have been the main driver of climate change.
Human activities? What kind of activities are we talking about?
Think about things like burning coal, oil, and gas to power our cars and factories, or cutting down huge forests. When we do these things, we release of gases into the atmosphere, especially CO2, which is carbon dioxide. And those gases trap heat around the Earth.
So that's the...
Exactly. And since you mentioned it, is actually our first vocabulary word today. So, Mike, what do you think a greenhouse is?
Isn't it like a glass building where people grow plants?
Spot on. So a real greenhouse lets sunlight in but traps the warmth inside so plants stay warm. The Earth works the same way. Certain gases, we call them, let sunlight in but trap the heat. Without them, Earth would be. But the problem is human activity is making it. We're adding too many greenhouse gases, so the Earth is warming up way faster than it should.
Got it. So more greenhouse gases equals more warming. Is that what people call?
Yes. And here's a distinction worth knowing. Refers specifically to the rise in temperatures, but is the broader term. It includes warming, but also changes in rainfall, more intense storms, rising sea levels, the whole picture.
Okay, that clears things up. Now, you mentioned coal, oil, gas. That's another term I hear constantly. Can you break it down?
Sure. Our next vocabulary word. They're called fossil fuels because they formed from the remains of ancient living organisms, plants and animals that died millions of years ago. Over time, heat and pressure underground turn them into coal, oil, and natural gas. When we burn them for energy, they release huge amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere.
And that CO2 is what causes the greenhouse effect to get out of control.
Exactly. Which brings us to one more key term. Your carbon footprint is the total amount of greenhouse gases, especially CO2, that produce through your daily activities. Flying, driving, eating, shopping, all of it adds up.
So if I take a long-haul flight, my carbon footprint goes up?
Significantly, yes. Flying is actually one of the most carbon-intensive things an individual can do.
All right, so we know what climate change is and why it's happening. But what are that people can see in their everyday lives?
Oh, where do I even start? Okay, so one of the most visible effects is, think about it. In recent years, we've seen record-breaking heat waves, massive wildfires, super powerful hurricanes, and devastating floods, all happening and
is climate change definitely causing all of that?
Scientists say it's not always one single cause. But climate change is making these extreme events. It's like, imagine you're playing dice. Climate change is loading the dice so you get the bad weather result more often.
That's a really good analogy. So, that includes heat waves, floods, hurricanes, basically weather that goes beyond the normal range.
Exactly. Anything unusually severe or intense, and it's becoming the new normal, which is deeply concerning.
What about the oceans? I've heard things are pretty bad there too.
The oceans are an issue. First, we have As temperatures go up, glaciers and ice sheets in places like Greenland and Antarctica are melting. All that water flows into the ocean, and sea levels creep up.
How serious is that realistically?
Very serious. Low-lying coastal cities like Miami, Bangkok, or Ho Chi Minh City could be significantly affected in the coming decades. Millions of people live in areas that could eventually be flooded.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that close to home for so many places.
Right? And there's another ocean-related problem. The oceans are absorbing a lot of extra CO2, which makes seawater more acidic. We call this. And it's destroying coral reefs and harming marine life.
So, that's when the water itself changes chemically?
Exactly. The pH of the ocean drops. It becomes more acidic. And that makes it very hard for creatures like corals, oysters, and clams to build their shells. Coral reefs alone support about of all marine species. Losing them would be catastrophic.
What about animals and plants on land? I've heard people talk about being at risk.
Yes, is such an important term. It basically means all the different species of animals, plants, insects, fungi, everything. When ecosystems change too fast because of the climate, many species simply can't adapt quickly enough. We're already seeing some animals go extinct or be pushed out of their natural habitats.
And losing that variety of species, that doesn't just affect nature, right? It affects us too?
We depend on nature for food, clean water, medicine, clean air. Losing biodiversity puts all of that at risk.
Okay, Rebecca. All of this is pretty heavy. I don't want our listeners to feel hopeless. Is there anything we can do about it?
Absolutely. And this is the part I love talking about. So there are basically two levels. And
Let's start with individuals. What can the average person do?
there are a few big ones. First, you're eating less meat, especially beef, can significantly reduce your carbon footprint. Livestock farming produces a lot of methane, which is a very powerful greenhouse gas.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know food choices had such a big impact.
They really do. Second, if you can take public transport, ride a bike, or switch to an electric vehicle, that makes a real difference. And third, be a more conscious consumer. Don't buy stuff you don't need.
Simple things, really. But what about the bigger picture? Like governments and companies? Because it feels like individual choices alone won't be enough.
You're right. And that's where it comes in. Means at the level of entire systems, governments, economies, industries, individual choices matter. But the impact comes from changing how the whole system works.
So, what does that look like in practice?
Governments need to invest in. And that's our next vocabulary term. Comes from sources that are naturally replenished, like solar power from the sun, wind power, or hydropower from rivers. Unlike fossil fuels, they don't run out, and they release little to no greenhouse gases.
So, switching from coal power plants to solar farms, that's the kind of shift we're talking about?
Exactly. And it's already happening in many countries. The cost of solar and wind energy has dropped dramatically in the last decade. It's now often than fossil fuels.
I've also heard the term a lot, like sustainable farming, sustainable business. What does that actually mean?
Great one. Means able to continue long-term damaging the environment or using up resources faster than they can be replaced. So, for example, means growing food in a way that keeps the soil healthy for future generations instead of exhausting it.
Got it. And what about? I hear companies say they're going carbon neutral, but I'm not totally sure what that means.
Such a common term right now. Being, sometimes also called, means that the total amount of carbon you emit is balanced out by the amount you remove or offset. So, for example, a company might reduce its emissions as much as possible and then plant trees or invest in clean energy projects to offset the rest.
So it doesn't necessarily mean emissions, just that the net effect is zero?
Exactly right. Net zero, the being the key word. What goes out is balanced by what's taken back in. Countries like the UK, Japan, and South Korea have committed to reaching net zero by 2050.
That's ambitious. Do you think it's actually achievable?
It's challenging. but the technology exists. What we need now is political will, investment, which means people like our listeners. Speaking up, voting for leaders who take climate seriously, and supporting sustainable businesses.
So even having conversations like this one, spreading awareness, that's part of the solution.
100%. Every action counts.
All right, let's bring it home. What a conversation, Rebecca.
I know, right? Okay, quick recap before we say goodbye. Today we learned that is caused mainly by human activities releasing greenhouse gases. It's already affecting our weather, our oceans, and our biodiversity. But there are things we can do, both personally and as a society.
And we covered some really important vocabulary today. Let's run through them one more time. The trapping of heat in Earth's atmosphere. Coal, oil, and gas that release CO2 when burned. The total emissions caused by your activities. Unusually severe weather events. The increase in ocean levels from melting ice. The variety of life on Earth. Clean, replenishable energy sources. Able to continue without harming the environment. And balancing out your emissions to reach net zero.
That's a solid list. And here's your listener challenge for this week. Try to use at least of today's vocabulary words in a sentence or a short paragraph. Write it in the comments. We'd love to read them.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like, subscribe, and share with a friend who's learning English. It really helps the channel grow.
We'll see you next time on Take Care of Yourselves, and take care of the planet.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.